The room echoed with the tension of unspoken words as Susie and I faced off over the fate of our living room. The once familiar space now felt like a battlefield, each piece of furniture a potential landmine. We had grown distant, our differences magnified by a simple disagreement about redecorating. "I can't believe you won't let me have a say in our own home," Susie seethed, her eyes flashing with frustration. The air crackled with unspoken resentment as I stood my ground. "It's not about not letting you have a say. It's about practicality. The furniture is only 2 years old, and we can't afford to replace it," I argued, attempting to keep my voice steady. The argument spiraled into a clash of values, a clash that went beyond mere interior design preferences. Susie accused me of being stuck in the past, resistant to change. I accused her of being impulsive, wanting to discard the stability we had built for the sake of fleeting trends. As the evening wore on, the emotional storm settled, leaving behind a desolate landscape. Trust, respect, admiration, everything seemed to have vanished. The love that once bound us together was replaced by a cold and bitter realization that our marriage was now just a story. Late into the night, I found myself staring at the living room, the symbolic battleground of our disagreement. The furniture, once a testament to our shared life, now seemed like relics of a failed union. The walls, witnesses to countless conversations and shared laughter, felt like silent spectators to our unraveling. In the eerie stillness, I couldn't escape the feeling that our once solid and reliable marriage had crumbled beneath the weight of unresolved issues. The devastation was palpable, pushing me to the edge of surrender. The thought of ending the marriage loomed large, a daunting decision that felt like both liberation and defeat. As I retreated to the quiet of the bedroom, the echo of our argument lingered in the air. The bed, once a place of intimacy, now felt like a battleground extension. The emotional distance between us stretched like an unbridgeable chasm. Little did I know that this night, marked by a clash over living room furniture, would set in motion a chain of events that would shatter the foundation of my life. In the aftermath of the living room dispute, a persistent unease settled over my days. Susie's behavior seemed to shift subtly, leaving me with an unsettling sense that something was amiss. The specter of doubt cast its shadow, and I found myself questioning the foundations of our marriage. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I noticed Susie engrossed in a hushed phone conversation in the kitchen. Her laughter, once a source of comfort, now sounded distant and unfamiliar. Intrigued and uneasy, I approached her, feigning casual interest. "Who were you talking to?" I asked, attempting to mask the underlying tension in my voice. "Just a friend, nothing important," Susie replied with a forced smile, her eyes avoiding mine. The air crackled with unspoken secrets as doubt gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. As days turned into nights, the sense of suspicion grew. Small, seemingly insignificant details became magnified, creating a web of doubts that entangled my thoughts. Late-night phone calls, cryptic messages, and furtive glances fueled the seeds of doubt that had taken root. One evening, unable to contain my unease any longer, I broached the subject with Susie. "You've been acting strange lately. Is there something you're not telling me?" She looked away, a fleeting expression of guilt crossing her features. "It's just stress, work and everything. Don't read too much into it." She deflected, her words failing to dispel the lingering doubts. The air between us hung heavy with unspoken truths, and I felt the chasm widening. As I tried to bury my suspicions, a rival named Ezra emerged on the periphery of our lives. A charismatic figure in our community, he had once been a mere acquaintance, but his sudden presence fueled my insecurities. One evening, I overheard Susie talking to a friend about an upcoming event where Ezra would be present. "He's just a friend," she insisted when I questioned her about it, but the unease lingered. The seeds of doubt had taken root, and the landscape of our marriage became increasingly treacherous. Little did I know, this vague sense of foreboding would lead me down a path of painful discovery, unraveling the threads of trust that had once bound us together. The seeds of doubt planted in the previous chapter continued to germinate, casting long shadows over my once secure marriage. Susie's connection with Ezra became more apparent, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our relationship was slipping through my fingers like sand. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Susie received a call from Ezra. I couldn't help but notice the secretive glances she shot my way as their conversation unfolded. The words were muffled, but the tone was enough to send a chill down my spine. After she hung up, I confronted her with a growing sense of urgency. "Who was that?" I asked, my voice tinged with a mixture of anxiety and frustration. "Just a friend," she replied nonchalantly, her eyes avoiding mine. The air thickened with unspoken truths as doubt intensified its grip on my thoughts. Unable to shake off the unease, I decided to follow Susie discreetly, a desperate attempt to uncover the truth that lay beneath the surface. Little did I know that this decision would thrust me into the heart of a clandestine meeting that would unravel the carefully woven fabric of our marriage. The night was shrouded in darkness as I trailed Susie to a dimly lit spot, where she met Ezra. Hidden in the shadows, I overheard their conversation, like a silent witness to the betrayal unfolding before me. "You can't keep doing this, Susie. We need to be more careful," Ezra cautioned, his voice a low murmur that carried the weight of shared secrets. Susie's response was equally hushed, her words a mosaic of guilt and desire. "I know, but I can't let go." "Not now," she confessed, her vulnerability exposed in the dimly lit alley. As they parted ways, Susie turned to Ezra, her eyes searching for reassurance. "We'll figure this out, Ezra. I promise," she whispered, sealing their secret with a promise that sent shockwaves through my already shattered heart. In that moment, the cloak of shadows lifted, revealing a truth I was unprepared to face. My suspicions were confirmed, and the pain of betrayal cut deep. The unraveling of our marriage had transitioned from whispers of doubt to a deafening roar of heartbreak. The shadows that once concealed the truth were now etched into the fabric of our shared history, forever changing the course of our lives. As the truth of Susie's betrayal gnawed at my conscience, a storm of emotions raged within me. The initial shock gave way to a seething anger that fueled a relentless need for revenge. The pieces of a vengeful plan began to take shape, a desperate attempt to regain control over a life that had spiraled into chaos. One evening, as the weight of my discovery pressed heavily on my shoulders, I sought solace in a dimly lit bar. The air inside was thick with the scent of regret, and the flickering neon lights seemed to mirror the tumultuous path ahead. It was in this melancholic atmosphere that I encountered a friend, Jack, who sensed the turmoil within me. "You look like you've been through hell. Everything all right?" Jack asked, his brow furrowing with concern. I took a swig of my drink, the bitterness mirroring the bitterness of my situation. "Nothing's all right. Susie's been cheating on me, Jack. I can't just let it slide." Jack leaned in, his voice a low whisper in the dimly lit corner of the bar. "Revenge won't fix things, mate. It might make you feel better temporarily, but it won't mend a broken heart." But my mind was set. The rage within me demanded action. As I began to formulate a plan, I reached out to an old acquaintance, a private investigator named Mike. Over the phone, I conveyed my suspicions and the need for concrete evidence. "We need to catch them in the act, Mr. Thompson." "Are you sure about this?" Mike's gravelly voice held a hint of concern. I hesitated, the weight of my decision heavy on my shoulders. "I need to know the truth, Mike. I can't go on living in this web of lies." The plan took shape like a twisted chess game. Mike provided me with a discreet listening device, ensuring I could eavesdrop on Susie and Ezra's conversations without their knowledge. As the days passed, my anxiety and anticipation intensified, knowing that the unfolding events would dictate the course of my revenge. The night of reckoning arrived, and I found myself parked outside a nondescript hotel, shadows playing tricks on my heightened senses. Clad in a baseball cap and a plain t-shirt from the trunk, I attempted a makeshift disguise. The plan was far from foolproof, but it was my only shot at uncovering the depth of their betrayal. In the shadows, I overheard Susie and Ezra, their conversation a sinister melody of secrets and deceit. As the pieces of my revenge fell into place, the darkness around me seemed to reflect the abyss that had become my marriage. The plan had taken shape, and with it, a burning desire for retribution. Little did I know that the flames of revenge would not only scorch the remnants of my marriage, but also set in motion a series of events that would alter the trajectory of our lives in ways I couldn't fathom. The night was a tapestry of shadows as I lurked in the darkness, my heart pounding in rhythm with the unfolding revenge plan. The listening device clung to my ear like a lifeline, feeding me the venomous words that would confirm Susie's betrayal. Positioned behind an abandoned bus, I watched as Susie and Ezra entered a dimly lit hotel. Inside the darkened bus, I strained to hear their conversation, my breath caught in the vice grip of anticipation. Susie's voice, once soothing, now felt like a cruel reminder of shattered trust. "I can't believe we're doing this." Ezra's voice carried a mixture of excitement and guilt, the sinister melody of their affair echoing through the cramped space. Susie's response was a hushed admission of desire, a confession that sliced through the air like a knife. "We deserve this, Ezra. We deserve to be happy," she whispered, the words a haunting echo in the cold night. With every uttered syllable, the flames of my anger intensified. The plan had morphed into a heart-wrenching reality, and I felt the weight of betrayal pressing down on me like a leaden cloak. As Susie and Ezra made their way to a hotel room, the darkness became my ally. With a determined resolve, I trailed them to the lobby, uncertainty gnawing at the edges of my consciousness. The receptionist, an unwitting accomplice in my pursuit of truth, directed me to the room where the sordid rendezvous would reach its climax. In the cold, sterile hallway, I hesitated, my hand poised to knock on the door. The gravity of the situation bore down on me, and for a fleeting moment I questioned the sanity of my actions. But the fires of revenge burned hotter than reason, propelling me forward. With a swift knock, I disrupted the sanctuary of their illicit affair. The door swung open to a scene of betrayal. Susie, disheveled and exposed, Ezra standing by her side, his face a tableau of shock and anger. "What the hell are you doing here?" Ezra barked, his attempt at authority undermined by the vulnerability of the situation. A twisted smile played on my lips as I reveled in the chaos I had unleashed. "Just ensuring you both get what you deserve," I retorted, the satisfaction of vengeance coloring my words. The room crackled with tension as Susie pleaded, "Please just leave. We can talk about this later." But the fires of my retribution raged unchecked. With a forceful slam, I shut the door, the safety chain snapping like the last vestige of our shattered marriage. Outside the room, the echoes of Susie's pleas were drowned by the roar of my own anger. The flames of a fiery vengeance had consumed the remnants of our love, leaving behind a smoldering ruin. Little did I know that the inferno I had ignited would cast long shadows, each flickering flame a testament to the irreversible damage inflicted on our shared history. The plan had unfolded with ruthless precision, and the aftermath would be a bitter pill we would all be forced to swallow. The aftermath of my fiery vengeance unfolded with a swiftness that left me grappling with the consequences of my actions. As the embers of the hotel room confrontation still smoldered in my mind, the cold reality of legal trouble encroached upon me. The next few days were a blur of flashing lights and stern-faced law enforcement officers. Handcuffed and led away from the scene of my revenge, I found myself behind bars, a captive to the consequences of my desperate pursuit of truth. Inside the stark confines of the holding cell, I sat with a heavy heart, reflecting on the path that had led me to this desolate moment. The air was thick with the stench of regret, and the clang of metal bars echoed like a mournful dirge. A fellow inmate, hardened by the trials of his own choices, eyed me with a mix of curiosity and indifference. "Trouble with the missus?" he grunted, breaking the silence that had settled over the cell. I nodded, the weight of my guilt etched across my face. "You could say that," I replied, my voice a weary whisper. The inmate chuckled, a bitter sound that resonated with the harsh truths of life behind bars. "We've all got our reasons for ending up here. Some just wear their mistakes on the outside," he mused, a wisdom born from the crucible of experience. As I navigated the complex legal proceedings, I found solace in brief conversations with my court-appointed attorney. "You know, revenge rarely brings the closure people seek," she remarked, her gaze penetrating the walls I had erected around my pain. What choice did I have? I had to expose the truth, I retorted, my words laced with the bitterness of regret. The attorney sighed, a gesture that spoke volumes about the complexities of human emotion. Truth has a way of revealing itself, but the path you've chosen has consequences. You've burned bridges that may never be rebuilt, she cautioned, a sobering reminder of the irreparable damage wrought by my actions. As the legal proceedings unfolded, I discovered that Ezra, too, faced a reckoning of his own. The rumors of his misfortunes, whispered through the cold metal bars, hinted at a life unraveled by the consequences of our shared betrayal. In the quiet moments of reflection within the confines of my cell, I began to grapple with the true cost of my vengeance. The flames that had consumed the remnants of my marriage had left behind a smoky haze, obscuring the path to redemption. Behind bars, as the days stretched into an interminable blur, I pondered the painful truth that revenge, no matter how justified it may seem, exacts a toll that often extends beyond the immediate reckoning. The embers of my actions continued to smolder, casting shadows over the road ahead, a road fraught with the uncertainty of a life forever altered by the pursuit of a bitter truth. The sterile walls of the prison cell enclosed me, a confining backdrop to the inner turmoil that raged within. Days turned into nights as I grappled with the solitude, each passing moment a relentless reminder of the consequences of my quest for vengeance. In the cold and unforgiving quiet of my confinement, I found myself engaged in sporadic conversations with fellow inmates. One evening, as the flickering overhead light cast long shadows across the narrow corridor, a weathered man named Carlos approached. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, amigo," Carlos observed, his eyes reflecting a hardened wisdom earned through years behind bars. I sighed, the burden of regret heavy in my chest. I never thought it would come to this. All I wanted was the truth. Carlos chuckled, a sound laden with both sympathy and cynicism. "Truth is a slippery thing, my friend. Sometimes we chase it only to find ourselves drowning in the consequences." His words lingered in the air, a poignant reminder of the complex tapestry woven by the choices we make. As Carlos shared the details of his own journey, I began to understand the gravity of my situation beyond the confines of my own pain. The prison psychologist, Dr. Martinez, became a reluctant confidant during our sessions. Her probing questions unearthed layers of my psyche, exposing the vulnerabilities that had driven me to the precipice of vengeance. Revenge often stems from a deep well of hurt. Do you think exposing the truth has brought you the closure you sought? Dr. Martinez inquired, her gaze penetrating the emotional barriers I had erected. I hesitated, my gaze fixed on the sterile tiles beneath my feet. I thought it would, but now I realized that the truth came at a cost I hadn't fully considered. She nodded empathetically, her insights cutting through the fog of my conflicted emotions. Closure, my dear, often requires forgiveness, even if it's for oneself. Until you can reconcile with the choices you've made, the path ahead will remain obscured. As the days stretched into weeks, the routine of prison life became a monotonous rhythm. In the quiet moments, I reflected on the collateral damage of my actions, the embers of revenge casting long shadows over the ruins of my life. Through the narrow slit of a window, I glimpsed the outside world, a stark contrast to the sterile confines of my cell. The distant hum of life beyond the prison walls served as a haunting reminder of the freedoms I had sacrificed in pursuit of a bitter truth. The chapter of captivity unfolded with a sobering realization. The pursuit of revenge had not only imprisoned me physically, but had also shackled my spirit in the chains of remorse. Little did I know that the shadows of reflection would pave the way for the next chapter, one that held the promise of redemption or the continued descent into the abyss of my own making. The prison walls, once a cold and indifferent witness to my struggles, held me captive as I grappled with the fallout of my actions. As the days unfolded, I faced the harsh reality that the pursuit of truth had severed more than just the ties of my marriage. It had severed the bonds of family and left me adrift in a sea of consequences. In the stark visitation room, where muted conversations echoed against the sterile walls, I faced the most challenging confrontation yet, a meeting with Susie. The air buzzed with tension as she took a seat across from me, our connection reduced to the barriers of a cold table. "You've ruined everything, Jason," Susie spat out, her eyes a tempest of anger and hurt. "You couldn't just let us be happy." I met her gaze, a mix of defiance and regret etched on my face. Happy? Is that what you call it? What we had wasn't happiness. It was built on lies and deceit. Susie's eyes flashed with resentment. You think you're blameless in all of this? You pushed me to this point with your constant suspicions and accusations. I leaned back, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. So, this is my fault. You betray our marriage, and somehow I'm to blame. The visitation room transformed into an arena of accusation and remorse, the echoes of our strained dialogue bouncing off the sterile walls. The ties that had once bound us in matrimony were now threads frayed and irreparable. Outside the prison confines, a phone call brought the next blow. It was my daughter, Emma, the one person I had hoped to shield from the wreckage of my choices. Her voice trembled through the receiver. Dad, I can't do this anymore. The whispers, the judgment. It's too much. Emma confessed, her words a painful admission of the collateral damage wrought by my quest for revenge. I swallowed hard, the weight of my daughter's anguish settling heavily on my shoulders. Emma, I never wanted this for you. I just wanted the truth. Her response was laced with bitterness. Well, congratulations, Dad. You got your truth, and now we're left picking up the pieces. The severed ties of family hung between us like an unbridgeable chasm. As Emma's words faded into the sterile silence, I confronted the realization that my pursuit of justice had cost me the very connections that once defined my life. Back inside the prison cell, the solitude felt more profound than ever. The echoes of severed ties reverberated through the narrow confines, a haunting reminder of the choices that had brought me to this desolate point. In the cold, stark quiet of my solitude, I reflected on the profound cost of revenge, a cost measured not only in legal consequences but in the shattered relationships that lay in its wake. The chapter of severing ties unfolded as a testament to the irreparable damage wrought by the pursuit of a bitter truth. Little did I know that the echoes of this chapter would continue to resonate, shaping the contours of a future that remained uncertain and fraught with the consequences of my choices. The prison days stretched into an agonizing continuum, each one a reminder of the irreversible consequences of my actions. As I navigated the labyrinth of legal proceedings and introspection, a profound sense of closure beckoned, one that promised either redemption or a continued descent into the abyss of my own making. The prison psychologist, Dr. Martinez, became a steady presence in my journey toward resolute closure. In one of our sessions, she probed the recesses of my conflicted mind. Jason, closure often begins with self-forgiveness. Have you come to terms with the choices you've made? Dr. Martinez asked, her gaze a steady beacon in the dimly lit room. I sighed, the weight of my guilt palpable in the air. I thought exposing the truth would bring closure, but it feels like I've unleashed a cascade of pain. She nodded, her empathy a balm to my wounded soul. Closure isn't an immediate destination. It's a journey fraught with self-reflection and acceptance. Only then can you truly find peace. As the legal proceedings reached their zenith, news reached me of Ezra's departure from town, his life unraveling in the wake of our shared reckoning. The irony of his escape, a stark contrast to my own captivity, wasn't lost on me. One day, as I sat in the prison yard, a fellow inmate named Carlos approached, a newfound camaraderie forged through shared struggles. We all pay the price for our actions, amigo. The key is whether you let it break you or make you stronger. Carlos mused, his words resonating with the wisdom of a man who had weathered the storms of regret. Our conversation lingered on the theme of redemption, a concept that felt elusive in the unforgiving confines of prison. Redemption isn't about erasing the past, it's about building a better future, Carlos affirmed, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon beyond the prison walls. The prison chaplain, Father Rodriguez, offered a different perspective on the path to resolute closure. Forgiveness is a journey of the heart, my son. It begins with forgiving yourself, then extending that grace to others. In my newfound solitude, I grappled with the complexities of forgiveness, a journey that demanded both humility and a willingness to confront the shadows of my own mistakes. As the legal proceedings reached their conclusion, the day of my release dawned with a mix of trepidation and hope. The prison gates opened, releasing me into a world forever changed by the echoes of my choices. Outside the prison walls, I stood face to face with Emma, the ties that had once been severed now hanging fragile and tentative between us. Dad, I don't know if we can go back to how things were, Emma confessed, her eyes mirroring a blend of pain and uncertainty. I nodded, a resolute acceptance of the reality that awaited me. I don't expect things to be the same. All I can do is strive to be better for both of us. The journey toward resolute closure continued, a path fraught with the echoes of a bitter truth and the shadows of a fractured past. Little did I know that the final chapter of this tumultuous saga would be written beyond the prison gates, where redemption and closure awaited like distant beacons, beckoning me to forge a future free from the shackles of revenge and remorse.